So I know I just recently said in a video that I'm over eyeshadow palettes, and that is true to an extent. I feel like it takes a lot for an eyeshadow palette to catch my eye, especially new releases these days, just because I do have a good amount of palettes in my collection, and I've just been drawn to more minimal palettes and single shadows lately, specifically the ColourPop Super Shock shadows. But I will say there are some older eyeshadow palette releases that are still on my wish list. I always keep like a running list in my mind of older palettes that I am thinking about buying if they go on sale, or if I'm just kind of wanting a specific color story and there's nothing new that catches my eye. There are some older palettes and formulas on my list that I'm still curious to try. I've been filming these videos for a few years, and I've actually purchased a lot of the older palettes on my wish list. These days I don't always get as excited about new makeup as I used to. I feel like there are still a lot of great staple formulas that are out there. Now, I use the word older a little bit loosely. Some of these are maybe like a couple months old, but they're not brand new releases. So they've kind of died down. The hype isn't as much there as it used to be, but I wanted to share them in today's video. Also, if you guys have tried these palettes, please let me know your thoughts. Is it worth the money? Do you use it a lot? Or is it kind of found its way to the back of your makeup collection? Please let me know because that would be so helpful. Okay, so let's start with GlamLite. I've had my eye on GlamLite for a little while. They released a lot of really beautiful palettes, and I think what's nice about this brand is that they're not afraid of color. They do really beautiful color combinations. The shadows look super intense, really vibrant, which is what I love. I think the reason why I haven't purchased one of their palettes in 2021, or why I hadn't, is because I just didn't wear colorful eyeshadow as much, but that's something I definitely want to get back into in 2022. Colorful eyeshadow just puts me in a good mood even if I'm not going anywhere. So I'm thinking about trying this one at some point. This one is the Dirty Martini palette. They came out with 4 I think like drink themed palettes back in maybe late summer, early fall. I can't remember. I thought about buying this one or another one that I'll talk about in a second. And I think just because I wasn't wearing a lot of color at the time, I kind of forgot about it. But these swatches look amazing. This one has gorgeous greens, really vibrant blues, and I just love it. I feel like I've heard good things about these palettes from anyone who's actually tried them. And even though the initial hype has kind of died down and I don't hear about them as much, I still think it would be a really fun palette to add to my collection. I'm also just curious to try the brand GlamLite in general because I've heard really good things about their formula. I was either thinking about buying that one or the wine palette at the time when these came out. The wine palette has a bunch of gorgeous purple shades, really intense, vibrant blues. I love greens and blues and purples, but like I said, I just haven't been wearing them very much lately. So I feel like this would be such a fun palette to add to my collection to kind of get back into colorful shades, and I just love these palettes. I think they're so pretty. So if you guys have tried these, let me know what you think. I know they have like a brown one, and then they have another one too. Let me check. They have a chocolate martini palette, which is a gorgeous neutral palette, but I just have enough neutral palettes at this point. And then they have a margarita palette, which has like a mix of pinks and greens and blues. So I think I'd rather go for dirty martini or wine. Probably dirty martini. So if you guys have tried it, let me know what you think, but I think at some point this year, I'll probably end up grabbing that one. So pretty much all of the Natasha Denona mini palettes are on like my older palette wish list, and I usually buy one of these whenever there is a Sephora VIP sale if I'm placing an order, especially if I don't want a really large palette, just because I know if I purchase one of these, I'm getting a good quality palette. For the most part, I feel like sometimes there are inconsistencies, but I've heard really good things about these two in particular. The first one is the Mini Love palette. This came out, I think, last year around Valentine's Day, and I decided to skip over it because I have the mid-sized Love palette, which I enjoy so much. It's such a gorgeous palette if you love pinks and purples, and I just felt like because I had that one, I didn't need the Mini Love palette, but I hear so many good things about this. I know a lot of people say they like to use that palette on its own. They like to combine it with the mid-sized Love palette. So this one's still kind of on my wish list. I do feel like once Valentine's Day is over, it will probably move to like the bottom of my list again. I just kind of saw it as I was scrolling through older palettes and I was like, I still really like that one. So again, I don't feel like that's a necessity for me, which is why I don't have it. I have a lot of colors like that, but I do think it's pretty. The Mini Glam is probably a little bit higher on my wish list than Mini Love. I think it's such a pretty palette. I do have a lot of neutrals, which is why I haven't added that one to my collection. I did a video last spring, I think it was my Sephora VIB sale wishlist video where I told you guys I was either going to try Mini Nude or Mini Glam. I ended up picking up Mini Nude, and I have used that palette so much. When I did my palette ranking for 2021, that one was pretty high on my list. So I do feel like Mini Glam would definitely add to my collection. I'm sure I would get a lot of use out of it. I just like those smaller palettes. They make doing your eyeshadow so quick and easy because you're not overwhelmed by choices, and you know you're still getting really good quality. So we'll see. That might go on my loves list for the Sephora VIB sale later this year if I'm still into cooler tones. I did just get the Natasha Denona Biba palette as a Christmas gift for my husband. I have that on my eyes today, although it kind of looks like a little bit blue on camera. I just used like the 3 gray and black cooler tone shadows in it, and I think that that palette performs so well. It's gorgeous. For the most part, it's more of like a brown toned palette, but I also have the Glam palette, like the mid-sized Glam palette. So I feel like I'm probably set when it comes to cooler toned neutrals, but every once in a while, Mini Glam jumps out at me. Okay, so this next palette isn't really considered an older eyeshadow palette. I would still consider it a pretty new release, but it's been out for a few months at this point, so I feel like I haven't heard as many people talking about it, but it is one that I'm still thinking about trying, and that's because a ton of you guys told me that you love this palette. It's the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz eyeshadow palette. So like I said, it's not a super old release by any means. It's just a little bit older than, you know, brand new releases for 2022. To be honest with you, the initial photos of this palette just didn't do it for me. Even the photo on Sephora's website, I don't find super appealing. I feel like it just looks a little bit lackluster, kind of subdued, but I have seen other pictures on Instagram. I've seen swatches that make it look a lot more appealing, and a ton of you guys told me that you get so much use out of this palette. I actually think that this palette could be such a perfect springtime palette. I'm someone who likes to switch up my makeup seasonally, and this one just has like a bunch of pretty pastels, some pinks, some purples, but also some neutrals as well. I love the Huda Beauty palettes that I've tried. I have Mercury Retrograde, and then I got Naughty Nude a few months ago, and the formula is just so good, so reliable, but I just find that every time I do my makeup with one of those palettes, I love how it turns out. So I am kind of curious about this one now. I was going to skip it, and a ton of you guys said that it is your favorite, so once there is a Sephora sale, I might think about trying that one at some point this year too. So years ago, I tried the Tarte Tartelette palettes for the first time. I tried the original one, and then either at the same time or like right around there, I tried the Tartelette in Bloom palette, and they just didn't work for me. I felt like the shadows were a little bit dry, hard to blend, but ever since then, I've always wondered, like, would I like them if I tried them again? Because I get so many comments, and this is like for years and years, from subscribers telling me they love those palettes, they are your staple palettes. So I always wonder, like, has my eyeshadow preferences changed? Would I like them if I tried them now in 2022? Anyway, the first two, like the original ones, don't really jump out at me that much at this point, but the Tartelette Juicy Amazonian Clay eyeshadow palette is really pretty. I think this one was released maybe like a year or two ago, and I just think that this one is pretty. It kind of has like a rosy hue to it. I think you could create a bunch of pretty looks with it. You could use the rose horizontally, or you could even use them vertically. I just think it looks like a pretty palette. So this one has kind of piqued my interest. Not enough for me to buy it yet, but I will say it looks really pretty. So if you guys have tried this one, what do you think? Do you like it? Is it a staple in your collection? What would you compare the Tartelette formula to? Because it's been so long since I've tried it, I don't know what it's similar to. So would you say it's similar to Urban Decay? Would you say it's like Natasha Denona or ColourPop? I would love to know what you guys think. Again, I do feel like I have a lot of neutral palettes in my collection, so it's not something that really feels like a must-have for me, but I do kind of have my eye on that palette every once in a while. I think it's cute. One brand that I've been kind of curious about for the past few years is Sigma. A lot of my favorite YouTubers rave about Sigma eyeshadows, and I haven't tried any of their eyeshadow palettes, but I will say over the past few years, whenever they've released a palette, it always catches my eye. I always think it's Anastasia Beverly Hills or another high-end brand, and then I'll read the comments and realize it's Sigma. So I'm kind of curious to try out their formula in general. The palette that I usually kind of think about trying is the Rosa palette, which is such a beautiful warm toned palette. You get neutrals, some oranges, peachy tones, golds, and I think the reason why I haven't picked this up is just because I'm not usually as into like those super intense warm toned eyes as I used to be. If I am, I'll usually reach for like my Natasha Denona bronze palette or something I already own. but I do think this palette is really pretty. Like I said, a lot of people that I watch rave about their palettes, so I'm kind of curious to try them out at some point. I'm curious to see what they release in 2022. And if you guys have tried Sigma palettes, what do you think? Well, again, what would you compare the formula to? That's what I'm always curious about. Because the palettes kind of look like Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes, I kind of want to know if the formula would be similar or not. I really like Anastasia's formula. They just haven't released a palette in a little while that's really caught my eye, but I missed them. I was kind of going through my eyeshadow palette collection earlier today, and I was just like pulling out my older ABH palettes, and I just think they're so pretty, and I miss wearing them. Mine are pretty old at this point. I haven't worn them in a while. They might be expired. I don't know. I'll have to look a little bit more closely. Actually, there is another warm toned eyeshadow palette that I've actually added to my cart and taken out a few times. It's the Juvia's Place Rebel Quad in Honey. So I have the Rebel Quad in what is it called? Army. It's this like deeper forest green, and I love it. I love quads. I think they're so convenient because you just get a couple of shadows, but you can usually create a complete look. And when Juvia's Place released these quads, I thought they were so fun. There's a mint toned one, a silvery one, and then there is this gorgeous warm toned one. Whenever I'm at Ulta or whenever I'm placing an order on Ulta's website, I add this to my cart and then I take it out because I'm like, I don't need it. But it really is an older palette that I think about trying all the time. It's only a $10 palette. I'm sure if I bought it, I would enjoy it. So at some point I'll probably just buy it because it's been on my list for so long. But again, I just feel like I don't wear those shades as much lately. I do typically wear them a little bit more during the summertime, so I might buy that one once summer rolls around, but I really enjoyed the Army Rebel quad that I do have, so I might try another one at some point. Okay, I thought I bought these palettes. I remember talking about them in a sale video because they were on sale, they were discounted. A ton of you guys said that you loved these palettes, so I thought I bought at least one of them, but apparently I didn't because I don't have them in my collection. So Flower Beauty has these two 6-pan shimmer palettes that are so pretty. There are two, but the one that definitely caught my eye a little bit more is the, oh, I just pulled up the wrong one, the Desert Lights palette. I love shimmer eyeshadow so much. I feel like I'm not as picky about matte eyeshadow. As long as it blends, I'm happy, but I'm always looking for just really intense shimmers that stay in place well, that catch the light in such a pretty way, and this palette looks so pretty. I feel like this would look amazing on top of pretty much any palette that I own, so I have thought about purchasing this one from time to time. Okay, I'm on Ulta's website right now. It's buy one, get one 50% off. So I do need to purchase another product from Flower Beauty, so I might take advantage of this. When I initially talked about this in a video, a ton of you guys said the palette is absolutely amazing. So I'm kind of curious about it. It just looks like a really pretty palette. So that is one that I've had on my wish list. They also have the Jungle Lights palette, which actually has different colors in it. So they released this one first. I don't feel like this one got as much hype, but after I mentioned it in a video, a lot of you guys said that you do have this one and you enjoy it too. I don't think I would wear these shades as much. So now that I'm kind of looking at it, I don't know that it's really like fully on my wish list. There are some pretty colors in here, but I think I would definitely wear the shades in the Desert Lights palette a little bit more. So again, if you guys have tried those, I would love to hear your thoughts. From what I've heard from you guys so far, the formula is really good. So BH Cosmetics is a brand that I enjoy. Whenever I try something, I generally like it, and I think that their prices are usually pretty good. A lot of you guys, again, have told me that their eyeshadow palettes are the best. You love them so much. I've tried a couple in the past, and I've enjoyed them too, but I feel like for some reason, their color stories don't always do it for me. They tend to have like a lot of shadows in their palettes, and they'll have neutrals and colorful tones, and I feel like when I look at them, I don't always feel super inspired by them. But there is a palette that I do consider from time to time. It is the Weekend Vibes Avocado Toast palette. Again, I just think it's so cute. It's kind of similar to that Glamlight Martini palette, but this one does have a couple of browns as well. But you do get a good mix of greens, kind of like some blue toned greens, and I just think it's a cute palette. BH Cosmetics is a brand that I definitely want to try more of in 2022. I've tried a lot of their products. I really do like their brushes. I have one of their blush palettes. They rarely let me down, but for some reason it's just not a brand that typically catches my eye when I'm like scrolling through new releases. Sometimes I just kind of skip right over theirs. So I definitely want to give them more of a chance in 2022. Okay, the last palette I wanted to talk about is from the brand Pyt Beauty. I've never tried this brand, but I do see it on sale on occasion on Ulta's website because I usually film those videos where I kind of share the best deals happening at Ulta and Sephora, and this brand goes on sale fairly often. So they have a couple of these upcycle eyeshadow palettes. The one that always catches my eye is Rowdy Rose Nude. I just think it looks like such a pretty eyeshadow palette. I will say the eyeshadows look a little bit more appealing in the actual palette than they do in the swatches. Like when I look at the palette, I'm like, yeah, that looks gorgeous. It catches my eye. And then I kind of scroll through and I see the swatches and I'm like, it's a little bit underwhelming, or I feel like I probably have those shades in other palettes, which is why I haven't purchased it yet. Also, it's $28. It's a brand that I haven't tried. Sometimes if it's a brand that I haven't tried or I haven't heard a lot about, I'm a little bit more hesitant to try it out because I just don't know anything about the formula. Let me check out the reviews. This review says the palette is super pigmented, and then this review says the shadows lack pigment. So I don't know. The next review says they lack pigment. The next review says all of the shadows kind of blend out to a brown. So I don't know. I think I just took that one off my wish list too. I feel like whenever it has mixed reviews like that, I don't usually want to take a chance on it, especially because it is $28. So it's not a super inexpensive palette. But if you guys have tried it and you enjoy it, let me know. Okay, guys, that is everything I wanted to talk about in today's video. Thanks for hanging out with me and thanks for chatting with me about eyeshadow palettes. I would love to know if there are any older eyeshadow palettes on your wish list, so let me know in the comment section below. Or if you guys have tried any of these palettes and they are staples in your collection, or you hated them, let me know too, because I would love to hear your thoughts. But I hope you guys have a great day. I will be back very soon with a new video. I've been uploading every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, so I'm not sure when this video is going up, but I will be back on one of those days with a new one. I'll see you guys then. Bye.